All right, guys, welcome back to class. Today, we are going to start doing some more work in analyzing poetry and our narrative arc and our descriptive and sensory language. And we are getting ready for our end of module task. This is going to be a major grade as well. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to these next 5 lessons to make sure that we're doing it accurately. So at the end of this lesson, you will know how to analyze poetry for narrative arc and descriptive and sensory language. You will understand the importance of descriptive and sensory language, and you will be able to write how descriptive and sensory language is used in exemplar poetry samples. So in order for us to get started with this task, I want you guys to think about all the text that we've read in this arc. And I want you to ask yourself, who was the most memorable speaker or narrator in the text we've read in this module, and why? Who was the most memorable speaker or narrator in the text we have read in this module, and why? So let's have a look at our focusing and our content framing question. Remember, these questions always guide our instruction or guide our learning as we go throughout the process. Our focusing question is, what does it mean to be a storyteller? And our content framing question is, in our know stage, how do the module's texts build my knowledge of narrative writing? So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to begin working with a planning checklist. We're going to be working with these both in class and in home for homework. And this is going to guide your development of your end of module task over the next final 5 lessons. So you're going to have a planning checklist to help you put all of your items together so that you can complete your end of module task. So looking at our end of module task, it is going to be assessment 29, and it says, what does it mean to be a storyteller? Okay, so your task is, over the course of the 4 remaining lessons of this module, you will write, revise, and perform a portfolio of 3 poems, including a cover letter that together tell a story about a significant time in your own life, writing for a general audience, one that has understanding of free verse poetry but no familiarity with your personal experience. You must consider how to draft a narrative in verse that is engaging and accessible to a wide group of people. The purpose of this task is for you to, 1, demonstrate your understanding of narrative writing by writing a series of poems within a single narrative arc, and 2, to synthesize your understanding of the power of storytelling through your narrative writing and by reflecting on your writing process. So basically, we are going to be writing narrative poems to create an arc about a personal experience in our lives. And we're going to be trying to be good storytellers. In order to plan, we are going to be using a checklist. So we're going to look at handout 29A as well, which is our end of module poetry planning packet. Oop. So this is the end of module poetry planning packet, and it's a checklist. And it says, use this packet to guide you through the process of planning, drafting, and revising your poetry portfolio. Throughout the next 5 lessons, track your progress with this checklist. So you guys are going to be using this checklist to make sure you have everything you need inside of your poetry packet in order to complete your end of module task. I'm tired, guys. All right. So I want you guys to complete the first 2 steps of handout 29A for homework, but I want to model how to do step 2. So this is step 2, and in the boxes it says briefly describe the experience. So you're going to describe a personal experience. Then it says briefly record a few sentences about why this idea might work, Why is this experience important? What did you learn about yourself? How did it shape or change your sense of yourself in the world? And what will others learn about you from reading about this experience? Now, this comes from the end of module task in order to get yourself going for the assignment. So, the example that I wrote was I described an experience. So I said, I'm going to write about the time I wrecked my first car looking for a CD. This is a true story. I was on my way to visit my sister, and I was 15, a young driver. I wanted to listen to music as I drove. On my way to her house, I bent down while I was driving and leaned over into the passenger drive floor to get a CD. I crashed into the guardrail on the side of the road. My airbags came out and hit me and busted my lip. I also sprained my ankle as well. So then I went over here and I answered all of these questions. Why is this experience important? What did I learn? How did it shape my sense of self? And what will others learn from me when I tell this story? So I said, this experience is important because it taught me to be responsible and focused. Otherwise, there would be consequences. I not only hurt myself, but I wrecked my car and I had to go a few weeks without one. It changed my sense of self by teaching me to concentrate and focus on the task at hand, and that multitasking should only be done when it can be done safely. It also taught me that safety is important, especially when it comes to driving, so that you can protect yourself and others. And when people read or hear this story, they'll know the dangers of driving and how important it is to be safe. So you are going to have to do an example of this on the handout. If you would like, you can pause here at this time, but if you would like to keep going, we can continue on with the lesson. The next task that we're going to do is we're going to look at some example poems of what type of poems you should have inside of your packet. So this is for handout 29B, which is the end of module exemplar poems. I want you guys to read these poems in the exemplar poem packet and ask yourself, what do I notice about these poems and what story does the series of poems tell? So you need to look at all of the poems together and say, what do all of those poems together tell? Because they all should be connected in some sort of way. So here, I am going to show you what the exemplar poems look like. So these are the poems, and I just want you to read the following poems. Okay? And this is going to kind of help guide you as an example of what your poems should kind of look like as you're writing. Once you guys have answered or read those poems, we're going to move into our craft question, which is in our execute stage. And I want you to ask yourself, how do I use narrative arc and descriptive and sensory language in a poetry portfolio? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to break up and we are going to look at descriptive and sensory language, poetic types, and narrative arc. So we're going to reread those poems that were in our exemplar poem packet, annotate, and then discuss the questions up underneath these groups. So for group A, we're going to be asking ourselves, where does the writer use descriptive and sensory language in these poems? What is the effect of the descriptive and sensory language in these poems? And what mood is the speaker evoking with the descriptive and sensory language in these poems? For group B, poetic types, we are going to briefly summarize the story of each poem, and then we are going to review the criteria of our poetic types. And I would look back at your notes and your poetic types anchor chart. Then we are going to answer the question, why is each poetic type an effective choice for its story? Group C will do the narrative arc. how would you define the beginning, middle, and end in this poem sequence? What shifts occur with each section? What changes in events, settings, or characters occur? And how does the poet signal shifts in time in the portfolio? So this is going to require you guys to really analyze those exemplar poems, and you need to do that so that you know what type of work you should be turning in at the end for the end of module task. Now we're going to express some of our knowledge in our know stage. How do the module's texts build my knowledge of narrative writing? I want you guys to brainstorm at least 5 ways this task connects to the ideas from the module, and ask yourself, why does this assignment make sense as a accumulating task? How is telling a personal story powerful? For homework, guys, I want you to complete step 1 and step 2 in handout 29A. Make sure you're as detailed as possible. You're taking your time. If you need any help or have any questions, please come to office hours to receive additional help. All right, guys, so for our vocabulary deep dive today, we're going to be looking at the words stereotype and authentic. Let's look at the transcript of The Danger of a Single Story. So I'm going to go ahead and have The Danger of a Single Story transcript inside of Schoology. You're going to look at that text and you're going to identify examples of stereotypes in the text. So where in the text does the author mention something that is a stereotype? If you don't know what a stereotype or an authentic means, please look them up. Then I want you to think about some of those stereotypes that you guys have found inside the text and ask yourself or think about. Poets and storytellers have the ability to change readers' views of the world, and they can provide authentic insights into people and places that are unfamiliar to readers. So I want us to look back at the definitions of stereotype and authentic, and I want us to create a relationship word map. Your map can be an image depicting an action or an event. You need to create a 3 to 5 word phrase example of how these 2 words relate to one another. So how do these 2 words relate to one another? Then I'm going to have us go back and reread Nikki Rosa, which is one of the poems that we read, or one of our poetic performances that we watched. And I want you to draft 3 to 5 sentences explaining the poem's main idea using the words stereotype and authentic. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today. Once again, if you do not understand, please come to office hours so that you can receive additional help. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.